welcome to Endstep, the Upkeep Aftershow. Now, if you're clicking on this video, you might be confused, so let me get right into explaining some things. So if you're new, normally the week after our gameplay videos come out, we have a video where we sit down and we talk a little bit more about the game, the decks, interactions, whatever the theme was that we were playing, and that's kind of what this video is supposed to be. That's the series, is I'm going to be talking a little bit about that game. However, if you already knew that and you're watching this video, you might be thinking, well, why is it just Morgan on screen and not the whole team? Well, because the Commander Masters episode was, well, frankly, it was at the time the longest game we had ever filmed. It went for 2 hours and 20 minutes. I know it doesn't look like that when after editing it's a 40-minute long video, but it was 2 hours and 20 minutes to film the game. So we were all exhausted afterwards. At that point, it was like midnight. And it was also a sponsored video. It was our first actual sponsored video. And I figured giving a shout out and doing that setup with a sponsored video would probably get dicey, because part of the sponsorship program, as awesome as it is, one of the things that we have to do is send in everything that we do that's sponsored in for submission so that they can review it and give the okay on it. And I figured if I was openly doing an Endstep episode for that game, it might get kind of weird. So I didn't even say I was doing an Endstep episode, didn't have that normal around the table discussion exactly right after the game. Quick thing though, it's no longer the longest episode. We filmed a game the day before I'm filming this, and it was almost 3 hours. So games keep getting longer. The common trend though is it usually has to do with pre-constructed decks loosely. Take that for what you will. But with all of that said, there's a few things I want to tackle in this video. Most of it is going to be centered around Commander Masters itself. But part of it, this first little bit, I am just going to be talking about that game and that episode. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. And if you have checked it out, thank you, because I think that that video is doing very well. It's one of our best performing videos as far as how many views it's gotten in the amount of days it's been out. It's one of our best performing videos, and I know it's gotten a lot of new subscribers in. So hi, welcome. Normally we have more normal conversations, not just me talking to the camera after those games. So if you care to hear more about that game and those decks, I'm going to talk about that here first, and then I'll have a time card pop up on screen somewhere where you can skip over to that if you just want to hear my reaction to Commander Masters in general. So like I said, it was a longer game, and I think that that's a common trend that we see when we play with precons, and there's a few reasons for that. Part of it is that the decks just tend to be a little bit slower, but Wizards has also been a lot better about building just better rounded decks. There's a good amount of ramp, good amount of card draw, good amount of interaction, an appropriate amount of board wipes depending on what your specific strategy is. So with that said, there's just a lot of interaction. So while that does make the game go pretty long, it also makes the game more interesting for both, I think, you guys, the viewers, but also for us who are actually filming the games there in the moment. It's more exciting for us as well. So that's why doing these kind of videos and these kind of episodes are really exciting for us, is because there tends to be more interaction. Me and a couple other guys in the play group are pretty good about running a lot of removal in our decks, a lot of interaction and stuff like that. But a couple of the other guys haven't really learned to adjust their decks to do that yet. So it's nice when we all, from the starting point, all have a good amount of interaction. So that's a lot of fun. The general consensus on that game when we were filming it was one of the more exciting games because these are actually some of the best constructed precons that have been made. Really now with the MTG Ambassador program, it's really going to enable us to do set specific and new release specific episodes of the gameplay series. We have a couple others that we're probably going to be doing, and the only other time we've done it before was the second episode we ever did of this show was for the Warhammer precons, which was also a really cool game. You should go check it out if you'd like. The reason we haven't done it since then, though, is because it just takes a lot. It just takes a lot. Back then, when we weren't getting the product ahead of time, we were having to wait for the set to come out, wait till people got their paychecks and they could go buy the decks. Then we had to find a day where everyone could get together, and then I had to then film and edit it and try to get it released in a time where it was still at least moderately topical. And that was just very hard to do, and I feel like part of why that video had like a mad performance was because of all of that. So now with the MTG Ambassador program, and they're able to send us some stuff, we can film them before the sets are like officially released. That's actually helping us make these set specific episodes, and I really like doing them. One, because it's fun to get a little peek behind the curtain before the general public, so that's kind of exciting for us behind the scenes, but it's also just cool to get to play with precons that have been made by other people. And that's something that we've tried doing even just in our own play group in general. We have a couple episodes that we've done. We did one where everyone was playing one of my decks, and we did another one where everyone was playing one of Steven's decks, and that's just fun to do, to see like how other people would build things. Kind of rewarding, and I think it's a cool learning thing as a Magic player. So if you haven't ever tried doing that, I recommend it. But that's kind of all I really had to say about the game in specific. So what do I actually think about Commander Masters in general? So let's start with the positives. The positives are that this is kind of the dream master set in theory for the average Commander player. What I mean by that is it has a lot of the needed reprints, expensive cards that go in a lot of decks. It has a lot of that, as well as just cool new art styles, because part of what's fun about Commander is that, more so than probably any other format, is it's a form of self-expression, and you can lean into that even more if you have fancy arts or different art styles that you like more. And so Commander Masters bringing that forward and having new art styles and stuff like that, I think that's great. So even like, Arcane Signet or Commander Sphere or Command Tower, these cards that go in basically every deck, but they've been reprinted a trillion times, so they're basically worthless, but still having that reprinted and having new art styles of them, I think is actually really cool, and something that it's nice to see, honestly. I also really do like playing Commander Limited. I did a video that's a draft guide / sealed guide to playing Commander Masters a few days ago, so you should check that out if you're curious at all. It has a lot of stuff specifically for Commander Masters, but it also just kind of, if you haven't ever played Commander Limited, it's a good way to just learn how to do that in general. So if you ever want to play Commander Legends or the Baldur's Gate, or they'll probably do other ones in the future, it's a good way to just learn the basics. But it is something that I actually just enjoy doing. I like playing Limited in general, and because I like Limited and I like Commander Limited, it's a good mesh for me. I like it. For people who don't care to do that with the draft boosters, they're the set boosters and the collector boosters, so you can just get the cool cards and the fancy arts and all that cool stuff. So in theory, in isolation, it's a great set. And these are, like I said already, some of the best precons that have ever been made. They are so fun. Now here's where we get into the bad stuff. It's too expensive. It's varying a lot depending on where you're looking. If you're looking at the precons, which specific precon you're looking at, because some are more desirable than others. Some of the brand new cards are more desirable than others. So it varies a lot. But in general, we're looking at 2 or 3 times the average price of previous precons. And I think outright, they were probably going for almost twice that of an average precon. We say that like the new ones are somewhere in the $40 to $45 range. And these, I think, we're supposed to probably go for about $80. And while I did say that these are some of the best precons that have ever been made, they are not twice as good. They are not filled with twice as much value. And I did do a few days ago a unboxing and review, just really basic about the precons. And just to kind of recap, so you don't have to go watch that, because I think it was like a 12-15 minute long video. My general consensus is that yes, they're great, but they're not worth that much. You should not be paying markups for these. If you want the Slivers deck, you should have got it when it was going for like $70-$80, because paying the $130 or whatever it's going for now is not worth it. It's just not. And it's most atrocious in the land base. Some of the decks, not so atrocious. The colorless deck, it's pretty good mana base, but it's also a colorless deck, so it would be kind of hard to mess that up. And even the enchantment one and the planeswalker one, they are okay. The Sliver deck, though, the mana base is not very good. It has way too many tap lands, which is not good for how fast the deck is trying to be. It's somewhat of an aggro deck. When you play a bunch of tap lands, you have to think of tap lands as being a turn behind. And when you think about it in that sense, that's not something that an aggro player wants to be doing. I do think that the mana base isn't like offensively bad, as some people have voiced online, because I do think that the fixing is really good. You do have the slow fetch lands, you do have like 3 visits and Nature's Lore and Farseek, so like efficient, cheap, good ramp spells, and you have fetchable lands in there, fetchable duels that is, and you have like the tapped 3-color lands that they're not the triomes or the other ones, the like uncommon ones or whatever from Khan's block. So there is plenty of good fixing, but again, because so many of those are tap lands, it's offensive to an aggro deck. I think if this was a slower deck or more of a mid-range deck, I don't think that this mana base would have been so offensive, but because it's specifically Slivers, which is an aggro tribe, it's a big slap in the face, and it's a lot more offensive than the other decks. And there is more value in these precons than the average precon, but it's not twice as much value. And an easy way for them to affix this would just be put better lands in there. I'm not really expecting them at this point to be putting like real fetch lands and shock lands and and triomes even. I don't even necessarily expect them to do that at this point, but we don't need to be playing the Temple of whatever from Theros. We don't need to be playing the Snarls. Snarls are just bad. I have a couple decks that are 2 colors that I play Snarls in, but even that's like debatably not smart. An easy way to make it better would just be putting better lands in there. And there are the Battle Bond lands, which did get reprinted in the main set, but they're not in the precons for some reason. That seems silly. I think what's most offensive about this is that Wizards has kind of come out and said that this is not a premium product. It's not supposed to be seen as this fancy, inaccessible thing. And that is offensive because, well, Commander is your casual format. So if you're pricing people out of your casual fun format, that doesn't feel good. I'm okay with spending more on master sets in general because there is supposed to be more value in there. New art styles, they have to curate the draft environments. People had to, it costs them money to make the set outside of just whatever it costs to print it. So I'm willing to spend more on master sets, but this is ridiculous. Again, more than anything else, because it's your casual format, you shouldn't be pricing people out of your most popular format. Because as much as I do like playing Commander Limited, these packs are going for I don't know, 17, 18 bucks. I don't remember for sure, but you need 3 of these to do draft. You need 6 of them to do sealed. And if they're going for almost 20 bucks a pack, that's ridiculous. You can't expect people to pay that. There is a possibility that Wizard sees this and they get mad at me, and that would suck. But even though we're a small channel and we are kind of hungry to grow, I'd rather just be honest with you guys that, again, in isolation, we cut price out of the equation. These decks are awesome. This format is awesome. Our new arts, all of it. It's so great, but you add price to the equation and it gets pretty dicey. Now, I will say, if money is not a concern of yours and you've really been wanting to have a deck that's one of these themes that's like what these precons are, go for it. If you have the extra money and you want to provide draft, maybe you make big money, right? And maybe everyone else in your play group doesn't. Maybe you be the big guy and get a draft box and you bring it over and let your friends have at it. That would be real cash money of you. As much as I love this set, it is really sad to see it be so expensive because these boxes are like $300. That's a lot of money, especially with just how bad the economy is, and it's probably going to continue to get worse with the way that things are looking. It's hard for me to say, yeah, these pieces of cardboard are worth hundreds of dollars, when in factuality, there are very few cards in the actual set that are worth the gamble of actually trying to open them in a pack. I will say, though, they did do a really good job actually putting it together. I don't know, I'm sure it's Hasbro or someone who is actually responsible for it being so expensive. So don't get mad at the people who are specifically Wizards of the Coast. Don't get mad at the people who are making these precons, because again, the precons are great. Don't get mad at the people who are doing the art. Don't get mad at the people who are curating the draft environment. All of those people did a great job, and I'm pretty sure that none of them had any say in what the price was like for this set. If you want to pick it up, go for it. I think it's a lot of fun, but I hope that they use it as a learning experience. I hope that they do see the community kind of being like, yay, this is really cool, but I literally can't enjoy it because of how expensive it is. Because I do really like the idea of Commander Masters sets, but they're going to have to tweak some knobs here and there to get the right balance of they can charge more, but they can't price everyone out, again, when it's their casual format, that is their most popular format, that is the way that most people are wanting to play the game. But that's a little bit about the last episode of our Commander gameplay series, Upkeep, and a little bit more about my thoughts and critiques. And I don't want to diminish the nice things that I said about Commander Masters as well, because I do think that it has a lot of really awesome things going for it. Make sure you subscribe. We have a lot of other awesome Magic the Gathering related stuff coming in the near future. And go check out any other games you might have missed, especially for you guys who are new. That Commander Masters episode was the 16th episode of our gameplay series, so you have lots of other games that you can go check out. We've had a lot of really fun themes, and we're about to officially launch into season 2, so we're going to be back in the process of doing a episode every other week instead of the once a month that we've been doing for the last few months. So if you're new, also make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you guys later.